Are you sure?
Here's the 30-second lesson on what legends know. Never ask a bride why she's getting married. Don't wear a skirt on a windy day. Deodorant is not a shower. Don't sniff chili flakes. And don't forget, saving is not investing. Legends don't just save, they invest in mutual funds. Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
The Congress party's government in Karnataka under Chief Minister Siddaramaiah has been there for just over a year now, and it's already hit by scandals, a couple of scandals. The opposition is out in strength, both in the public debate on the street and also significantly in the state assembly. And the BJP, as we know, makes a very formidable opposition. So what are these scandals which have hit this government? Let me try and explain these to you. One of these is a little bit simpler. That is the second one. A little bit simpler because that's a kind of classical Bharat Sarkar corruption case or alleged corruption case in a corporation, in a government corporation. That's a second one that involves a minister or now a former minister in the Congress government, former minister, because he resigned in the month of June. That is just a little over a month back. So that is a simpler scandal to understand. However, the more significant one is the more cluttered one. More significant because it involves the Chief Minister himself directly. The allegations are against him. And more cluttered because it looks like if anything scandalous has happened in that case, first of all, everything is alleged. Opposition is making allegations. The Chief Minister has his defense, and there are some really interesting facts there, and that is what adds to the clutter. Basic clutter comes from the fact that if any wrongdoing has taken place, if any rules have been subverted, if any rules have been twisted to benefit the current Chief Minister, then all of that has happened in the tenure, not in his tenure as Chief Minister, but in the tenure of the Chief Ministers of the BJP, of Yediyurappa and Bommai. So if at all the allegation is that he was such a powerful leader of the opposition that he was able to get the laws twisted or rules twisted or manipulated in such a way that he and his family benefited. That is the reason I say this is the case which has more clutter. Now what is the case here? So here goes the story just purely on facts. Parvati Siddaramaiah, wife of the Chief Minister, she apparently, that's a claim, was gifted 3.16 acres of land, roughly 3.16 acres of land in 2010 by her brother. That land was gifted to her. The brother in turn had bought that land or acquired that land in 2004, 6 years earlier. Before that, in 1998, that land had been denotified in the sense that from just being purely agricultural land, it could be used for other purposes as well. So 1998, then 2004, Siddaramaiah's brother-in-law buys that land. 2010, he gifts that land to his wife. Now something interesting happens after that, and there is one little bit of a blank spot there. The interesting thing that happens after that is that as that land is handed over or gifted by the brother to his sister, that is Mrs. Siddaramaiah, in the village of Kesare. Kesare is a village on the outskirts of Mysore. Mysore by this time has begun to grow as a city, right? There were also ideas that Mysuru should come up as an alternate to Bengaluru. A highway is being built, right? Infosys campus has come up in Mysuru. So this is now a growing urban area, the growing urban zone, booming urban zone of Karnataka, the new urban zone of Karnataka. Kesare is sort of on the outskirts. Remember, the Siddaramaiah family belongs to that area. It belongs from thereabouts. Siddaramaiah's own constituency, which is Varuna, his assembly constituency, is part of the Chamarajnagar parliamentary constituency, which is also next door to Mysuru. In fact, his constituency of Varuna, while it's part of Chamarajnagar, it comes under, it's a taluk under Mysuru district. So this is that close to Mysuru. So the land begins to acquire value. Land begins to acquire value, and it looks as if now that is what the chief minister and his people are saying, that in about 2010, 11, 12 thereabouts, because Mysore was expanding and Mysuru's Urban Development Authority, or MUDA, Mysuru Urban Development Authority, just as we have DDA in Delhi, Delhi Development Authority, or HUDA in Haryana, Haryana Urban Development Authority, or every state has its own Urban Development Authority, and every major city as well. So as MUDA was expanding the city, in this period, they encroached upon this land. They didn't acquire this land, so apparently there were no notices issued to the owners of the land to say, we are acquiring this land, we are willing to pay this much, this is the purpose. You see those notices in your newspapers, mostly these days issued by National Highway Authority of India. Apparently no such thing was done in that case, and this land was taken over by the Mysuru Urban Development Authority. Then I told you there is a little blank spot. The blank spot is the 2013 election. When Siddaramaiah filed his election affidavit, he did not make any mention of this land as owned by his wife. However, in his 2018 affidavit, he mentioned this land, 3.16 acres of land valued at 25 lakh rupees. That might have been the original acquisition price, because usually when you make these declarations of assets, you go by what was the original acquisition price or the original valuation. So he says this was 25 lakhs worth. Then 2023, then comes the election of 2023. In that affidavit, he does not mention the 3.16 acres. Instead, he mentions 14 plots of land, 14 plots of developed land in Mysuru owned by his wife. These plots of land together add up to 38,264 square feet, or 3,588 square meters. Now, what is an acre? An acre is 43,560 square feet. So this is a little less than an acre. So the land, which was 3.16 acres in its dimensions, this now gets returned to his wife as developed land. The total adds up to less than an acre, just a little less than an acre, but these are 14 plots. And if you see 3,588 meters divided by 14, you would say roughly these are like 14 250 meter developed plots in urbanized areas. So the value would be much more than that. So 2023 election affidavit, Siddaramaiah mentioned these 14 plots, and now he puts the value at 8.33 crores. Now, what is the allegation? The allegation that the opposition is making is that he twisted the rules and he manipulated things in such a way that his land, which wasn't much value, which was far away from the city or urban areas, in exchange for that, he got these plots of land which are worth a lot more, and that then he should return this land back. Now, what happened? As this argument went on, Siddaramaiah also complicated his own life by succumbing to what I might call a rhetorical flourish. When he was told he should return these plots of land, he said, all right, you can take this plot of land back, but the value of my land that the MUDA encroached upon, mark those words, encroached upon, and all my life I have heard of people, land sharks, mafias, slum dwellers, anybody encroaching on government's land. I have not heard of government encroaching on other people's land, least of all a politician's land. But in this case, it looks like there were many cases where people said around Mysuru that the government, MUDA, had encroached upon their land. It is getting a bit more complicated from here on, so I'll be careful and I might repeat myself a couple of times just to make sure that there is no confusion. So we have to remember carefully when was Siddaramaiah Chief Minister and also when he was Deputy Chief Minister. So he was Deputy Chief Minister briefly under Dharam Singh's Congress government. These were all broken up governments, those days unstable. 2004-05 he was Deputy Chief Minister. Then he had a full term as Congress Chief Minister from 2013 to 2018, and now again his new term has begun in 2023. For the rest of the period, the government was with his opponents, mostly the BJP, mostly for most of these years with B.S. Yediyurappa, his arch rival. That is very important to understand. In fact, very significant, because some of the transactions which are now controversial and over which the BJP is raising questions, those took place when the BJP was in power. For example, yes, one of the things that he's supposed to have done wrong, and it doesn't look right, is that he did not make any mention of this property or of this asset in his 2013 election affidavit. At the same time, 2018, he had corrected that and he made this mention. 2023, he again made a mention now of the plots that he had got in return of this land that his wife originally owned. That said, in 2011, he made allegations against what was then Yediyurappa government, the BJP government, where he said that MUDA, that is the Mysuru Urban Development Authority, had unfairly, arbitrarily taken a lot of these encroached lands and allocated these to people without any justification or without any transparency. So these allegations were made by the Congress party in 2011. Again, no specific allegation was made that Siddaramaiah's land, Siddaramaiah's wife's land, had also been similarly encroached upon and given away. However, in 2014, the story is that this quote-unquote encroachment by Mysuru Development Authority, encroachment by a government agency of private lands. Once again, I repeat, I have not heard this before. If you've done so, please do tell me. Encroachment of private lands by a government agency, that took place between 2010 and 2014. In 2014, there was an application that Siddaramaiah made and many other people made to the government and to MUDA, MUDA, to return their land. There were several applications filed and several people went to court and multiple litigations started. It was as a result of these litigations that in 2020, the government came up with a formula to resolve these litigations. They said, all right, whatever land we might have taken from people, anybody who has lost land like this, please come to us. We will give you equivalent of half of the land that you've lost to us in developed areas, by way of developed plots in developed areas. So in the year 2020, this 50-50 scheme was launched. You lost 1 acre of land, I will give you half-acre equivalent, but in the shape of developed plots in urbanized developed areas, so they will have a lot more value. Remember, who was in power in 2020? It was the Yediyurappa government that was in power in 2020. So if at all any favors were given to Siddaramaiah in return for that 3.16 acres of land, those favors were given to him by Yediyurappa's government, because they are the ones who came up with this policy. And in this case, this exchange was done not just for him, but for 1,200 other people who were given these alternate sites in return for the land that the government may have encroached from them in the past. So once again, for clarity, in 2020, MUDA passed a resolution applying this 50-50 scheme. However, in the state of Karnataka, this policy had existed since 2009. But 2020, when MUDA decided to apply this, passed a resolution to apply this, then Yediyurappa was the chief minister. And then when was this land allocated? When was this land allocated to these complainants? That was done in 2021. It was done in 2021 when still BJP was in power. And while the resolution was passed by MUDA in 2020, the plots were given in compensation to those who had lost their lands earlier to encroachment by MUDA. September 2021, when Basavaraj Bommai was chief minister. Again, it was the BJP government, and that's why Siddaramaiah is saying that they gave the land and they are now saying it was a scandal. What the hell is going on? This makes no sense. So in the surface, in fact, you would ask this question that what has gone wrong, because all the rule change, the new resolution, the application of the 50-50 rule, the allocation of these lands, it has all been made by BJP governments. Now, BJP party itself says that, look, Siddaramaiah may have been out of power, but he was leader of the opposition and he was very powerful. And he was so powerful that he was in a position to also manipulate things in such a way that he benefited when we were in power. Now, if you believe that, I don't know. That's a bit touching, particularly for a BJP government to say that they were in power, but leader of the opposition was able to twist the rules in his favor. That said, there are also other twists to his land controversy, because it does look like there is an activist who's gone to Election Commission of India. First of all, 2013 affidavit, Siddaramaiah not mentioning this land or this asset itself is problematic. In fact, it does look like there are many other twists in this. Some activists say, and they've gone to relevant authorities, that MUDA had started acquiring land in this area and urbanizing as far back as in 1992. So politicians, the key figures, would have known that this land will acquire value, and that's when Siddaramaiah's family probably acquired this land, apparently or allegedly, from a bunch of Dalit families who did not have very good idea what was going on. And this was done in that anticipation of this land acquiring or growing in value going ahead, because that's what happens when you are in power. Ruling elites in India have always done it. If you can anticipate that an area will urbanize, or an airport will come up, or this land will get acquired for a highway, the value will go up. That's when in anticipation you go and buy land. So activists also say that was the idea. That's how the Siddaramaiah family came in possession of the land, because they had advanced knowledge. Now, we don't know anything about that. That is something that might come out later, because the Chief Minister has now set up a commission of inquiry under a retired High Court Justice P.N. Desai, which apparently will go into all of these issues. However, the Chief Minister himself complicated his life a little bit by succumbing to a rhetorical flourish. When he was told, why doesn't he return the plots, right? He said, I will return the plots, but you give me the value of my original land, which was 3.16 acres. And he said, that value is 62 crores. Now, it's a little bit funny, or more than a little bit funny, because in his 2023 affidavit, he put the value of these 14 plots at 8.33 crores. So now to say, all right, you can take these plots, but give me the value of my land which you encroached upon illegally, for which I have accepted these plots worth 8.33 crores according to my own affidavit in exchange. But if you want these plots back, then the value of my original land is 62 crores. Now, he might have said this just rhetorically, but that has muddied the waters. He says, however, and I quote him from our story done by Sharan Povana, of which I'll share a link with you. He says, and I quote, BJP gave this land and they are now leveling allegations. The BJP, however, has made it out to be a much bigger allegation. They say it's not just about himself, that he and his family acquired this land dodgily, maybe with prior knowledge at a point of time. Now they exchanged it for a much higher price value. Remember, once again, I underline that and I repeat that, while the BJP was in power. Even if he got this land in compensation at a much higher value, it happened while the BJP was in power. The policy under which it happened, a resolution to implement that policy, was also carried out when the BJP was in power. But the second thing they say is that through this policy and through this exchange, he also benefited a lot of people close to him, and loyalists. And that's how they say this is a 4,000 crore scandal. Now, as we told you earlier, about 1,200 people got these plots of land in exchange for their agricultural land, which MUDA had acquired or encroached upon or grabbed. I still find it difficult to understand how a government agency could just go and encroach upon common people's land, but that is apparently what seems to have happened in this case, and that is what makes it that much more complicated, and if I use our favorite expression, cluttered. That's the reason I thought we'll talk about this. Now, the second scandal is a little bit easier to understand because that's a classical scandal that takes place in almost every state government in India, because state governments have these corporations and many ministries have these corporations under them. So ministers treat these as they are milch cows or ATMs, not all ministers, but many ministers. And these scandals keep coming up in several states all the time. So in this case, the scandal is about a corporation called Karnataka Maharshi Valmiki Scheduled Tribes Development Corporation, KMBTSDC. What's happened in this case is that the minister in charge, B. Nagendra, who was Minister for Scheduled Tribes, Welfare, Youth Affairs and Sports, he's resigned. He, by the way, is himself a scheduled tribe as well, from a scheduled tribe as well. He's resigned because of the allegation that some new account was set up, that the account that the corporation had with Union Bank of India, that was transferred from one branch to another, and a sweep-in, sweep-out facility was created. So apparently, two accounts could be operated, or money could be transferred from one to the other, or something like that. In the process, 88 crores. Allegation is 88 crores, but looks like now the findings tell us that's more than half. That's more than half of the corpus of the entire corporation. That's been taken out and transferred to dodgy accounts in Hyderabad, cooperative bank accounts in Hyderabad. Some IT companies definitely hasn't gone for tribal welfare. Now, how did the story come out? The story came out because on 26th of May, Chandrasekharan P, who was account superintendent with the corporation, he apparently or allegedly died by suicide in Shimoga district. And as he died by apparent suicide or alleged suicide, he left a 6-page death note. In this 6-page death note, he alleged that several senior officers, top leadership of the corporation, and also officers of Union Bank of India were involved in taking money out of this corporation by creating fake checks, fake RTGS requests, etc. Now, this led to an inquiry and the filing of the complaint. So, 28th of May, A. Rajshekhar, who's a general manager of the corporation, he filed a complaint with authorities, with the police, saying that on 19th of February this year, 19th of February, the corporation shifted its account from the Vasant Nagar branch in Bengaluru to the MG Road branch, and it was to be jointly operated by the managing director and the accounts officer. On the 21st of May, he says the corporation officials went to the bank asking for checkbooks and passbooks, etc. But they were denied that, and that's when they suspected that something was wrong. And we know that 26th of May, this apparent suicide took place, and the whole case got exposed. Then they discovered that the amounts that they were taken out based on forged letters, checks and RTGS requests, these added up to 97 crores 73 lakhs 8,500 rupees. That's more than 50% of the corporation's entire corpus, and the complaint says that the bank is complicit as well. Now, if you go back to the death note also says that the MD was involved. Death note also says that these transactions were carried out, or these quote-unquote fake transactions, allegedly fake transactions, were carried out on the oral instructions of the minister, because the minister on oral instructions asked for this sweep-in, sweep-out account to be established. Now, JG Padmanabh, the managing director, has been suspended. Investigations are going on. This case is now being investigated by the CBI, and as often happens, as almost always happens these days, when the CBI comes in, ED comes in its wake. So ED it is which has arrested Nagendra, the minister. Now, the question that will arise, I know all of you are sharp watchers of Indian politics, you will say this is Congress government in the state. So how did they allow CBI to come and investigate a case in their state? Because most of the opposition states are now not giving CBI the permission to investigate in their states. That's a big tamasha that's going on in West Bengal with Sandesh Khali, etc. Because that's where this High Court had asked the CBI to come in. And that case ended up in the Supreme Court of India. In this case, the story is a little bit simpler. The story is that since this involved a swindle in a nationalized bank, in this case Union Bank of India, they made a complaint to the CBI, and because they are a central government undertaking, they are owned by the central government of India, CBI did not need the state government's permission to come and investigate this case. That's why the CBI and EDF got involved. This is now being investigated like any normal corruption case. However, the net effect of both these scandals is the first one is a bit unusual and quite cluttered because the wrongdoing in favor of Siddaramaiah, if any, has taken place when he wasn't in power, when he was in opposition, but the BJP was in power. The second one is more like the kind of corruption case that we've become familiar with over the years.